Good morning. My name is Marie Nugent and I'm here with a series, Time to Sparkle and Shine. It's also the name of my business, where I work with amazing women that go through challenging times and I'm here to support their own sense of self, their strength and their ability to feel empowered. And I've got one of those amazing women with me this morning. Good morning, Melanie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So excited to be here.
I know. And welcome to your first Instagram Live.
Yes. Whole new experience.
And you managed it, and you made it. And I'm so delighted to be talking to you today, because when your whole concept of learning from the animals, I think, is just genius, personally. So I do. So where did so you're obviously this is something that you feel passionately about. So where did the idea come from to start with?
Oh wow, that's quite a long story, and it was sort of a series of events that took me
Yeah.
into. So I'd say the start of my journey started in 2013, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it wasn't the best experience, as you can imagine. I went through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, but during that time, I was introduced to Reiki. And I find, because I was quite poorly after each chemotherapy session, I'd start to get a little bit anxious before I was due my next chemotherapy. And my auntie did Reiki at the time, and she asked if I wanted a session. Now, I didn't know anything about Reiki at that time. And I thought, well, it's not going to hurt to try it. And
Yeah.
oh my God, what a difference that made. It was amazing. I came away, I felt so relaxed. I got through the chemotherapy sessions really positive. I, and each week as I started to feel a little bit anxious, I had another session and I was fine, and I was so positive throughout the treatment. It really, really helped. And during each session, I always had this overwhelming feeling that I needed to give back. And at one point, I could see myself doing Reiki, which for something I'd never encountered before was huge. So after the therapy, and I went back to work, and everything had changed. I wasn't the same person. I didn't have the same energy, and I had different values, because before, my work ethic had been work, work, work. I work Monday to Friday. I work late at night. Saturday to clean. Sunday I work again. I'm a teacher in a school, and the list is endless. So when I went back, obviously I didn't have the same energy, and I was struggling a bit more, so I was working harder. It was taking me longer to get things done, and I got myself into a vicious cycle, which led to me becoming really anxious. So I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety for a while. So I found a local holistic centre, and I started going for angelic Reiki sessions. And again, that really helped so much that I asked my husband, would he go for a session? My husband has MS and he's always in pain. It's never less than a 4. Can get up to a 7 quite often out of 10, on the scale.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he went for a session. So it was, and he came out, he went, do you know, he said, I'm at a 0. He said, I'm never at a 0. And that lasted probably about 4 or 5 days for him. And then started to come back a little bit. So we had a few in a row, and each time, he found the same happened. So I thought, well, we can't afford to keep having angelic Reiki sessions every week, because, it can be quite expensive to have so many. So I decided I was going to train to do the angelic Reiki myself. And it was the best decision ever. It opened up a whole new world for me, absolutely new world. I wasn't even sure. I didn't even know what Buddha was before. It was something I'd heard connected with the Bible.
Yeah, because you've spoken about that, the angelic Reiki. Now, I did Reiki myself. So, what was different from the angelic Reiki to Reiki as I would know it, in bringing in the angels? Like, how do you know, are there specific angels you work with, or the specific energies, or is it intuitive, or how's it?
Basically, I'm healing as a channel, so I channel the energies. So it's whatever energies actually
Oh, okay.
for that person. Obviously, intention is everything, and people
Yeah.
heal themselves and facilitate that healing by channeling the energy that they need, you know, to
Yeah.
do. And with the angelic energy, obviously, the angels know what's
Yeah.
needed. I'm just holding
And
this.
frequency. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with your Sui Reiki, I think you have to learn symbols, and all those symbols are sort of
Yeah.
integrated with angelic Reiki. You don't have to remember them. Both are effective. The Reiki that my auntie did
Yeah.
with me was Sui Reiki, and it was absolutely wonderful. So they're both absolutely amazing systems. It's just, you know, whichever you're drawn to. And I think because
Yeah.
the Reiki session was the one that came up, and with the chemo, it affected my memory a little bit, so I was a bit worried that I wouldn't
Okay.
remember the symbols if you did your symbols.
Okay.
That's where
Yeah.
the work appealed to me. But that again, I mean, I took that up to master level and I now teach it. I'm running a workshop this weekend actually. Professional
Oh,
practice.
congratulations!
The first group of trainees will be coming.
Oh, brilliant!
I'm excited about that. I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. But that opened up a whole new world, and what it did, it woke me up to unique talents that I didn't know I had. It opened me up to more of a sort of psychic awareness, became more
Yeah.
intuitive to doing it. And it obviously engaged my interest in angels. So I then went
Yeah.
on to do a course with Ashley Mooney. I don't know if some of you
Yes,
have
I
heard of
do. Yeah, Ashling. Yes, I know it.
that. And I took an angel course with her, and I had like a clarification call with her before this meeting. And we were talking about my background and everything, and I've always loved animals. I always wanted to be animals as a kid. I spent every minute I could with my cousin who had a green parlour, lived in a kennels, had horses. And I was talking to her, and I said, now I can feel just lighting up talking about animals. And Ashley said the same thing. She went, your path is working with animals. You know, it's with
Yeah.
animals. And I came off the call and I thought, it is. I absolutely always wanted to work with animals, but how do I get into that? And you know,
Yeah.
and I'd often because I couldn't find it was very difficult to get working with animals because everybody wanted to do it, and they weren't the same training courses and everything then either.
Yeah.
And it was quite, oh, you've got a house and you've got to pay the bills. So I ended up going into teaching instead. And they say I never work with children and animals, and
I know you're doing both.
so
I'm loving it.
I'm a qualified teacher. I'm a special needs coordinator in school. I work
Yeah.
with children with a range of special educational needs and social and emotional needs, and I support the teachers in facilitating that in the mainstream school.
Yeah.
So I'm just stepping back to the animal section, and then I will go into the teaching because it all fits together. It's like a jigsaw life, isn't it?
Always does. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so with the animals, after I'd spoken to Ashley, and I went online and I looked up animals, you know, jobs with animals, and I came across a website by James French, who did animal communication and trust technique. And I looked at this animal communication. You can talk to animals. That's amazing. Obviously, that got my interest. So I looked into that, and I took his first course, his Act One CD, and I did that, and I started to learn how to connect and communicate with animals. Now, communicating with animals, that sounds absolutely bizarre to some people. It did to me when I first hear it. But really, it's just another sort of psychic tool. If you can communicate with people with past, you can communicate with animals, you can communicate with anyone really. It's all the same principle. You connect to
Yeah.
people, and the information you're getting is coming through all your clairs, your clairvoyance, your clairsentience, clairaudience, or whatever, and you just give it. And I really enjoyed that. I started doing more communication for people through Facebook, just out of interest. But what I found is a lot of people were asking me to do some pretty heavy stuff that I wasn't quite ready for. They were looking at how does my animal feel about a death and dying, the animal's lost, you know, helping to find it. And whilst I did a bit of that, and you know, with great results. I wasn't confident at the time. It was a bit too soon for me. It's a huge responsibility, something like that. And I was always, well, you know, what, it's not quite right, you know, and that was trusting my ability more than anything, because with any sort of psychic reading, you just have to give what you get, and you don't know anything about the person, you don't know anything about the animal, you just give them the message and you pass it on. And when you get the feedback, that's when you know how effective it is. And I was sort of quite at an early stage in my career, so I sort of stepped back a little bit from that. But then I went to work obviously with the anxiety. Throughout the chemo, I started meditating, I'd started mindfulness, I'd seen people writing meditations. Ashlyn was writing meditations through angels. That's how I got into our work. And I thought, do you know what? There is so much you can learn from animals, from observing them in nature. And from doing all the communication, the lessons that they were bringing through was incredible. And I thought, you know, I need to do something with this. And obviously I was back at work. I was working with children who struggled with mental health, who struggled with anxiety, sort of ADHD, they're all over the place. Whatever the reason, struggling concentration, and meditation helps with all of that, absolutely massively. But children need like shorter sessions than adults, and it's not something that many children do. A lot of adults have gotten into meditation and mindfulness. There's a lot of therapists recommending mindfulness, but it's not something that many children do or are taught. It's starting to come through more now in schools, thankfully, because that, you know, needs to be taught. The way health is at the moment, it's on the rise massively, and with young children as well. I work in a primary school and I'm seeing it on the rise. So there is an absolute need to use this in school. So initially I created a program called Llama Meditation, which could be run sort of in schools, and I thought it can be run with families as well, it can be run with anything. And I was just really excited, because what I thought, what I realised was children are struggling not just with the mental health or anxiety, but they're struggling with other aspects. They're struggling with self-esteem. So, and especially if they've got any sort of special educational needs, where they work so much harder than others, the self-esteem is at rock bottom. They don't have belief in themselves. And then what you find, they go from low self-esteem to, and that can either stop them from trying, in which case they're failing, you know, and it's do it and fail, or else you see issues with, you're seeing a rise in behaviour, and they're getting angry with the friends because of them inside, and then that can cause fallouts and squabbles, relationship difficulties. It can lead to behavioural issues in class because there's a conflict where you work, no, I'm not doing the work. They start to get in trouble more, and you're seeing a cycle which can all come from low self-esteem. Relatively, you've got low confidence, which is another issue, very similar to self-esteem, but can be slightly different. And some of these children, again with self-esteem, can be sort of withdrawn and sit back and let others do all the work. And the other thing I've noticed, because I struggled with childhood anxiety, which obviously came back again as an adult, so I've sort of experienced it from both sides, is that what you experience as a child, that address follows you into adulthood. So I was confident massively as a child, and as I grew up, I was always going to step forward. I always, if I was in a group, I'd let other people take the lead, because they obviously had better things to say than I had. You know, what did anyone want to know my opinion? You know, confidence sort of grew with teaching. Well, that's sort of got of that mindset. But then even when starting my own business, you're coming into the business with imposter syndrome, which is huge for us when you start things. And you think, well, why would they listen to me when they've got so much more experience? They've got this, they've got that qualification. And it's all mindset, and it can all change. And teaching these skills from a young age, from children, how much different is their life going to be to yours? You know, self-belief from a young age. You look for so much success going forward, a much more happy existence.
And resilient, and the ability to navigate through life, because not everything's going to be going their way the whole time.
Yeah, and that ability, that faith in themselves, and that love of themselves, So that there are fallouts. You know, they're not having to sort of go with what other people are saying. Like, they not have to follow the leader, you know, which for children is low self-esteem. If they're following the leader, could be a leader who gets them on the wrong path, and if they get in trouble at primary school, where are they going to end up at school? Where are they going to end up in life? So it's like get those basics nailed. So I ran a meditation course in school, and I ran it as a preschool club with children. And at first, when they did it, they'd not encountered meditation, so they were a bit reluctant, because the way I structure it, we introduce an animal and we talk about an animal. So, for example, a cat. What do you know about a cat? So we'll talk about what a cat looks like, but then we go into the attitude of the cat. So a cat is very proud, you know, doesn't anybody else think that cat, and it's very proud of its achievements. So we then, after we talked about all the qualities of a cat, we'll then do a bit of a movement activity where they're actually pretending to be a cat and role play, which sounds a bit noisy, but that's all fun. And moving around like a cat, they'll crawl like a cat, they stand tall like a cat, you know. And I just get them moving around, because moving has lots of different benefits. And it provides oxygen to the brain, which helps thinking clearly. If children have lots of energy, which they're going to be before they go into meditation, you want them to burn off some of that energy. So, and it's providing empathy, because it's getting them thinking from a different perspective. So already, just from that short fun activity, they're getting so much out of it. And the beauty when you're doing it, because when I first did it, there was a couple of people who joined the club, and then as it went on, I had more children join because they didn't know what it was. So I'd run with them. So I've been running now like a, you know, lunatic. I was running with them. And we had so many laughs from doing that. And then when the children joined in, I was able to sit, because the ones who'd started it had got confident doing it because I'd done it with them. So then they were all doing it together, and I just found it so much fun. Excuse me. And if this is done with parents, the bond that they create, I'm just going to I'm sorry. The bond that they create with the parents from doing this, from having the laugh together, from being a bit silly together, is just lovely. And then they go into meditation. And at first, again in school, when I was doing the meditation, the children would lie down, they've not done it before, and then they're sitting up and they're looking to see if the others still meditating. And then the quiet is like, and I was sitting up. So, you know, nothing else that because I'm not done it. The second question, sorry, my voice is really going.
You're all right. You're clearing.
Oh dear. So the second section, the more confidence to it, and you know, they go in with the flow, and they're able to open up more and get more from it. And the third one is sort of well into it. So then after meditation sessions, we have a discussion. What did you find? So in the meditation session, they'll meet the cat and get to tell the cat. The cat will say the things that it's proud of, and they'll get to tell what they're proud of that they do, which is fantastic.
Really important.
They have the answers inside, and it's really important that they can see for themselves what they're proud of. And then when it comes to discussion afterwards, what did you see and what, you know, what came up for you? The children say, well, I don't know, I didn't get anything, I don't know what I'm proud of. Then straight away, that's an indication that we really need to work on this child's self-esteem and really build what they're proud of. So, you know, you're able to say, well, what are you good at in school? What is that? Can you tell me a picture that you're proud of? And you can prompt that, you know, go to gymnastics class and you're really good at gymnastics. What did you do? You did that cartwheel last week. And start to point out. And then this was once a week at school that I did this. At home, the beauty of this is that parents have got this course to play back as often as they want. So they can do this meditation every night, a 10-minute meditation. They can do any part of this, you know. And each time you do it, you're expecting them to build on what they're proud of and say what they're proud of. build on, so that eventually it becomes easy for them to say what they're proud of and recognise what they're proud of, you know, and
Yeah.
it's so crucial, especially if like children are in school where quite often you're measured on your academic ability, you know, how well your assessment role in your English, maths and sort of writing, reading. So
Yeah, how you can tell.
yeah. Whereas if children really are, or they're really good at PE, or you know, they're really good
Yeah,
at music, you know,
yeah,
then because everybody is different at different things. You know, there's
yeah,
so many famous actors who've got dyslexia. Harry Potter's got dyslexia. You know,
yeah,
Albert Einstein had
yeah,
dyslexia and some got Asperger's. So, you
yeah,
know, when you start to see your talents, and a famous quote, just to emphasize, is from Albert Einstein: "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing it's stupid."
yes, I know. That's, yeah, and it's absolute genius because and it's also getting out of that thing of judgment, you know. The school system created a system where children had only one way of excelling or, you know, of which didn't suit everybody because not everybody is academically minded, you know. And I'm delighted to see that it's changing in school, you know, because of the visual, you know, auditory or kinesthetic, you know, all these primary ways of how we see the world and how we make it relevant to us from our perspective, which is very different sitting down. You know, when I trained as a nurse, it suited me down to the ground because we spent 80% learning practically and only 20% reading. Because for me, the kinesthetic, you know, the actual doing, integrated and settled with me an awful lot more than actually sitting and reading and learning off facts, you know. So, and that whole thing as well, you spoke about the, you know, the imposter syndrome. And I do believe that as women, it's one of the biggest challenges that we're coming up against. But my belief is that the reason that's happening is that we've no template for those that have gone before us who have done it. If were part of a tribe, you know, the wisdom, the knowledge, the information would have been passed on, you know, from generation to generation, and we don't have any of that. So we as women are separate from our tribes to a certain extent, and we have to learn it to do it basically from scratch. So that in us doing it, then we will have that memory within us. We'll be able to pass that on to our children and on to our grandchildren, and they won't. You know, the girls in particular, I presume, I don't know whether the boys suffer from it, but just particularly for the women. And it's what it is that they've been overcoming, like over the last centuries, and redefining what it is to be a woman and their skills. And you're absolutely, their psychic abilities, their intuition, their understandings, their connectivity, all the things that we have instinctively that we have never been allowed to learn to trust it, trusting our intuition, you know, trusting our abilities. We have a sat nav within us, an internal sat nav that's, you know, that's basically connected to, you know, a source that's bigger and more powerful than we are. But we don't learn to trust it, and we don't learn to, you know, that we have these unique abilities, but we don't see them because we haven't learned to look at the world that way. So, you know, when I started this series of interviewing amazing women, it was because they had in their own way discovered their psychic abilities, their intuition, the powers that they possessed, and they used that to guide them in the direction that they were meant to go. You were obviously meant to, you know, to do this. This feels so right for you, and I get goosebumps when I'm talking about it. And you wouldn't have done that if you hadn't followed your intuition, if you hadn't been open. And I think when you come up against the challenge of cancer or something like that, you are taught to open your mind to all possibilities, that there's not just one way of approaching or taking care of a problem. And for you, that was your catalyst for change. It opened your mind to what it is, what's possible in the world when you tap into the magic, you know. And can I ask you, Melanie, how did you pick the animals? So which ones, like obviously the cat and the dog, you know, and maybe the elephant or whatever, or a horse or something like that, they would be the obvious ones. But how, because you have what, like 14 different animals, is it, that you use a template for? Yeah.
Yeah, and I also write blogs and I use a different animal every week. And the blogs that I write are for parents as well as children. Even the meditation course will benefit parents doing it with the children, because it's all about parents are great role models, and if parents are learning themselves, you know, and developing confidence, it's going to be a role model for children. So, you know,
empowered parents, powerful children.
Yeah, but the animals, they come to me in meditation. I meditate.
Okay. Okay.
Before I write, I sit down and I meditate, and it comes to me, and the guidance comes to me. So in a way, it is still using that intuition. It's still using the intuition, but you know, on a different level. And going back to what you said about that fear of judgment as well, that's something I absolutely had to overcome on my journey. And for a while, I've kept the animal meditations very separate from my sort of intuitive abilities, and I've not mentioned that because of that fear of judgment and that fear of, you know, saying, that there is a bit of stigma, isn't it, when people sort of say the intuitive or the psychic or they're going into the animal communication. And I kept it very separate for a while, and that's been a huge journey in itself, where, you know, I've actually come to realise that actually this is me. And
it's all of you, not just one aspect of it.
This is me, this is what I do. And, you know, I put what I get into the work, and the work, you know, it helps. I had somebody do a case study, which I'll talk about in a minute. But again, this is all about practicing what I'm preaching. Because if I'm trying to teach other people, and the lessons that are coming through other people through the meditation are absolutely for me as well. Because I'm having to walk the walk that I'm being shown to pass on to others, you know. And you know, that's
what it's about. It's what you've learned, embodied, and discovered works for you. Then, you know, you own that, and that is you saying, "This has worked for me, and I'm passing it on." And if it can work for me, it can also work for you. Huge.
Obviously, to validate what I did, because I've written this course, you know, I've worked with these kids, seen great results. But we had a external behaviour specialist who came into a school to work with some children around sort of the social, emotional, and behavioural needs, and she worked in other schools as well. So when I first wrote this course, I gave her a copy and I said, "Are you interested in trialing this in, you know, with some of the other children in school and doing a case study on it?" And she had absolutely. So she took it into 2 different schools and tried it with different groups of children, and she wrote some case studies up. And when she gave them back to me, I cried. I was so overwhelmed because of the comments. There was one little boy who was the focus of the study, and he had fetal alcohol syndrome, ADHD, social emotional needs. He struggled in school, and just coming in late could cause meltdowns in school, you know, and behavioural issues. And she said he came in late one day to school, which normally would have been a huge trigger for him, but he came straight into class and he settled straight away into the meditation. She said at first he was the same, it was sort of looking around, have they done yet? What do I do? Have they all got the right shot, you know? But then she said after a couple of weeks, I think it was the budgie one, she said an affirmation for the budgie, you know. And I am perfect as I am, just as I am. They always have an affirmation. She said, I could hear him saying it to himself as he left the room.
Oh, good.
Difference in him. And he actually said to her, "Well, when I get angry, I just go to the quiet garden and think of the budgie." you know. So that.
Oh my gosh, Melanie, I don't blame you. I'm nearly in tears myself just listening.
So
That's so beautiful. Yeah,
and
I can see the power of it. Yeah.
yeah, and she's wrote these case studies up, and I've got them on the website, you know, for Lama Meditation, so when people are looking at the course, they can actually see these case studies. But I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because that was done by somebody who was separate from me. She's
Independent. Yeah.
sort of no interest in it, you know. I wasn't
Yeah.
paid to do it. It was just, would you like to trial it instead of case study? And one the
Yeah.
parent of this question was actually high up in a council, and she came down to thank her, you know, for running
Yeah.
this and saying what a difference it had made at home as well. So
Yeah.
but the children I noticed. So sorry, I've got a funny story. Because I have feedback from the children themselves, and I got lots of really great feedback. One person who was living longer said, I really like doing it before school because I'm not angry when I go into class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another child say, I really like it because when I've done this first, I can really focus on my work. When I go into class, it helps me concentrate.
Yeah.
I asked, and different things, they also said about the meditation, some said about movement activities. And when I asked, do you do this at home? One girl, all of them actually said they did do some bit at home. They said, yeah, she said, it's really funny. She said, I keep doing it at home and my mum keeps shouting up, what's all that banging? And she said, I'm meditating, mum. I can have a laugh, but when you think the whole package, you've got the movement activity before the meditation. So she's
she was releasing all the steam before she actually said, you know, and that's, you know, that's just hugely powerful because, and it is something, you know, that you tend to overlook. If you're frustrated or anxious, you know, to be able to go and to let off some of that steam before you actually sit down, you know, you're going to be able to focus a little more, a bit like the pressure cooker. If you've let the steam out of it, then you know, it's easier to get into a calm space than it is, you know, when you're full of full of pressure. And when you're sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, and the beauty is after they've done the meditation and they've got something to talk about, and when they're doing this with the family, bear in mind if they've done all this fun part beforehand, all this movement, and they've been silly together, they're already forming that bond. They're sharing the experience, so the child is more likely to share what they've got from the experience, and that then enables a really good in-depth discussion about what they found and anything they need to learn out. So with friendships with the dog, for example, if they're not quite sure what friend is, that will come out in discussion from meditation. So you're able to discuss that more and work on that. So yeah.
And can I ask you, when you're teaching the children to meditate, what is it that you use? You know, okay, they've used movement beforehand, and then you get them to go into quiet time. So, would you put on music, or is that necessary?
No, I usually put on music in the background because I find that does help to calm the brain. It's all your binaural brain waves. You know, it helps to calm down. With children, not all children, if they've got ADHD, they're not going to want to lie down.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because that's particularly challenging.
Yeah, so it's bearing in mind the needs of the children. So in school I have them lying down or sitting down. You can actually do a walking meditation. So if you move around, you know, not too worried about them moving, but help them concentrate on the visualization. Usually they do definitely, you know, and I had a child with ADHD who told me that, you know, it felt heavy when he did it. It actually relaxed, and he was up and down doing it. So I'll put the music on. I'll start with either, I offer two options. It's either a guided visualization of muscle relaxation, or we actually do the clenching and relaxing, the deep muscle relaxation techniques. And in my class, I've actually recordings with both on, because children might have a preference of what works better for them, or they might just choose to mix it up and they might want to do different things each week. So I do have both. So we'll do the muscle relaxation first, then we'll do some breathing. Breath work again is really important for oxygenating the mind.
Amazing. Yeah.
When you're calm and connected and into the moment, more settled. And then we'll go into a guided meditation. So I'll sort of take them through a story, and through that story, they'll meet the animal. So they'll be given a setting where they look at the setting or the surroundings, so that they're opening up the visualization or imagination. They'll meet the animal, give them a little bit of an introduction into what they do, and then ask them questions to reflect on them. So, you know, dogs make great friends. You know, and what is good things to do, and how are you a good friend? So it's through the meditation, getting them reflecting on some of the key questions that they need to know. And deep down, we all know the answers are there. So it's accessing that and making them think of it, but in an indirect way. So, because if you was to do this, say they'd be a friend and you're addressing it, you're going to feel threatened and feel that you're attacking and judging them for something wrong. Whereas if you're getting them to actually reflect and think about what makes a good friend, and then talking about it afterwards, you're building those skills and that knowledge in a very non-threatening, non-confrontational, non-judgmental way. And then obviously as we come out of the meditation, we focus back on the breath, and then we come back. It's only short meditations, are only up to 10 minutes because that's enough for children. Adults can have to do meditation with the children, and they'll find things. You know, things will probably come up for them they need as well. So and
it's great because for them it's also allowing them to speak about you know, their thoughts. And it's something that we can find very hard to put on words, what it is that we're feeling, you know, or put them into words. So for them to you know, that they can see about the, you know, say the dog and the loyalty and what it means to be a good friend, and, you know, what we would feel if such and such a thing happened. But it's giving them verbalizing skills as well that they may not have, or at least allowing them to build up their verbal skills so that they can actually say what it is that they're feeling, as opposed to just being so caught up in their emotions that they couldn't even put words on it, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And through the meditation as well, obviously there's so many, I mean, I've just spoke about the emotion side of things, really. The benefits from meditation, it's so beneficial to health, but it's also helping to raise awareness of those feelings, because it's helping them to recognise what being calm looks like and feels like, so they can more easily recognise when they're starting to get angry or they're starting to get anxious. And that's where you can break down all the different parts of the meditation. Because I missed out that I actually do a grounding activity before I go into muscle relaxation. So putting your roots down into the earth and grounding, they can use that part on their own as a way to relax. They can take the breathing aspect on its own and use that to help them relax if they're out of clothes. And once they've got these skills, all they need is a little bit of nudge to use them. I can see you starting to get angry. Don't you just do the breathing part, that meditation for a minute, and just calm yourself down and talk to me and tell me what's happened. You know, all the muscle, if they're feeling anxious, and they'll start to feel the
difference between your shoulders up here and when you're actually, that difference,
When I was a child and I struggled with childhood anxiety, and I struggled for so long, a couple of years before I got referred to somebody who could support me with that, and I saw a clinical psychologist, and all they really did was part of the deep muscle relaxation technique. But what that did, it did teach me to recognise. So I can remember being in school and I could feel my shoulders rise, and then I can remember recognising, actually, I'm feeling tense there. And because you can recognise it, you can do something about it. So if you think, and do you mind if I just share a technique, a little bit of background knowledge?
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So if you think about the brain as a hand, and then this part of the hand here is the lower part of the brain. So you've got the hippocampus and the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for your emotions, the hippocampus for memory side of things. Then up here you've got your frontal lobe. And this is responsible for sort of rationalising things, rationalising your emotions. And when children are all caught up in their emotions, they're working from this side of the brain. but to be able to rationalize those emotions and reason them, so you're not getting sort of beyond reason, you're not getting really angry and lashing out when you're seeing things as they are rather than just from your emotion. This part of the brain needs to be connected.
Okay.
Sometimes when something happens, you've heard the term flip your lid.
Yes. Yeah.
Shows this part of the brain isn't connected, and that's why children can seem so emotional and you can't get them to calm down and you can't get them to rationalize or reason no matter how you talk to them, because this part of the brain isn't connected.
Okay.
To connect that, you need to calm them down.
And meditation comes in, is it a part of it?
If they've got the tools and techniques, if they've been taught tools and techniques to help them calm down, you can use them. Let's do a little bit of breathing, and then as that helps calm down, let's just hold yourself. And then as this starts to come down and connect, then you can reason. Let's have a look at what happened. What was the problem? What do you think we can do about it going forward? But you can't necessarily address a problem at the moment it's happening when the children are in their emotion. And you can't teach them to calm. If you use those tools, you're going to struggle to calm them down. Whereas if you've got a bank of tools that they can use to help them calm down, that they've learned when they are calm, once they're at this stage, you can very quickly calm them down through reminding them. And the other thing you need to do when children are at this stage, just a big tip for parents, is rather than sort of going angry, recognise and acknowledge the emotion, because the children might not know what that emotion is, like you said before, naming, they might not recognise. So sometimes when children are at this stage, just going in and saying, I can see you're really angry at the moment, and that, it's so frustration. Shall we just sit down a minute and let's just spend a little bit of time relaxing, and then you can tell me about it and see if I can help. Let's just try this technique. Let's just try ring the roots down now, and then as they come down again, you can address them. So it's so many tools, so much that you can do to really help the children become more emotionally stable, more emotionally regulated, more aware of the thoughts and how they're feeling, more confident in themselves and their ability, and of judgment. Because if you're confident in you and you as a person, and you're learning not only how to be proud of yourself, because of course I do have different parts to it. So you've got the self-esteem about loving yourself, being proud of yourself, recognising your ability. You've got the confidence to actually step out and take on new challenges. Changes children face change. So I've got a butterfly meditation, a butterfly one which helps children cope with change. And if there's any parents watching, I have actually got a free download of that you can get from my Instagram page on the bio. But that's really good as children are looking at going into a new year group at school. That's
absolutely.
Helping them see that change is a good thing. So you're working on the mindset around change. We're looking at self-esteem, we're looking at mindset around things that come in. We're looking at relationships, recognising that it's okay to think differently, it's okay to have a different opinion, but you can still be friends and not fall out about it. Taking and problem solving, because when things happen, problem solving takes a certain area of the brain as well. It involves looking at things from different angles and different reasons. Goals. They see things from a different perspective. They see it from above and below. That's a good thing for introducing perspective as well. Perspective taking with relationships and friendships, and it all just comes to just building that confidence and that understanding of yourself and other people. That
is. I just think it's mind blowing. So it is, and I still say it's genius in its simplicity, but also in its power. I think it comes from because of the fact that I think teaching our children to be empowered. They are the generation that's going to be, governing the world, and we need more children who are in tune with themselves and their abilities, and that are self-contained, as in they know who they are and they don't need the validation from outside them, as in an awful lot of kids need. And it's part of the huge problem then when they are on the butt end of trolls or you know, particularly with social media now that there's so much access and it can do so much damage. But to be able to have that ability to see it what it is and just say, "Do you know, I actually don't need this in my life," you know, off you go. And that's,
and if I might be feeling as well, which is just as important, because if you can see that other people are feeling bad about themselves and they're saying something bad to you, you can recognise that what it is, and you can recognise without taking it on board for yourself. So, yeah.
Huge. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, Melanie, or for your program or the blogs in particular for the parents, and I know you have your free download for your butterfly, which is the one of change, where can they contact you? How can they contact you?
Page is contact me on Instagram, learning_animals, and there's a link in my bio which has got a link to all my different pages and resources.
Yeah.
You can find it on that.
And what would you like to do next? Like, where would you like to learn what the animals go? What would you like to do? I hate this question. Where would you see yourself in 5 years? No, I'm not even going to ask, because you'll just be gone beyond, you know, you'll be so big. So you will. You'll see, you know, your scheme will be in every school, and kids are going to be learning and benefiting. But for you, what would you like to do? I mean, books, cards, like CDs, or not? Well, not so audio downloads, whatever. All of the above.
Yeah. I want to get this in schools first of all, as the inspector. And then as schools are starting to see the benefit of this, I want to build it up into a whole school scheme of work, so that children are learning this as part of the curriculum, just a little bit of time every day, and really embedding it in folder. I've already started writing a few stories to go with the animals, again, to help with the lessons, give a scenario for that. So stories come up with that. I'm also going to be working with, I don't know whether Joanne Lee is on here. I know she came on earlier, she may have had to leave, she may have a client, but she's a brilliant artist, and she's drawn some pictures of animals, painted some pictures from animals. So we're talking about a collaboration and doing a card deck, you know, for animals, which I think will be really helpful, and you know, and much going forward, you know,
there's so much scope, you know, in that particular area for what it is that, you know, you want to do and what it is you want to achieve. But it's been a fabulous start. Like, I mean, it come even from, you know, last year when I spoke to you, it's like this, you know, to be in a different space, to have achieved so much, and well done, you know, it's absolutely amazing. So it is. And
the tapping, you know, that's another thing that helps. You did some EFT with me, because again, my confidence was quite low, and you get confidence boost, and that tapping, that really unlocks things as well. So, you know, I would say to people as well, use a lot of these other techniques to help you. Mindset, you know, is really important. Sometimes you can have blocks that need shifting, and that's where your tapping comes in. That's where things like Reiki treatments can help, you know, if you're feeling really confidence, you know, use other things as well to help. It's a whole holistic thing, body, mind and spirit.
It totally is. And considering we hold in our bodies cellular memory, not only of our own cells, but of the generations that have gone before us. So all of these things, like the tapping, the visualization, the meditation, anything that you do, the movement, they all help release a lot of that old pent up energy that we don't need anymore, you know, that because you have to let go to create something new, and to allow something new in, a new way of thinking, a new way of being, and to let it settle. And you know, that's why we're here. That's why you're here, Melanie. That's why I'm here. And it's made basically, you know, for the programs that we produce is for others to feel empowered.
Absolutely.
And to empower themselves, that ability to empower themselves, because when you get there, you own your experiences, and you can never feel like an imposter when you do that. They're your experiences. You've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, they're yours, and you own it. So you do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Melanie, it was an absolute pleasure. I just, you know, I just think you're amazing, and I'm wishing you all the best going forward, and hopefully we'll catch up again. I do believe that there's a whole generation of women that are doing this spiritual work that are going to be in millionaire status. And I think that the reason, not for the money part of it, but because of what it is that they're doing, they're passionate about doing what it is. And I think, you know, it's getting over that mentality of giving your stuff away for free. That fact that your experiences are priceless. So, you know, we'll be starting the Millionaires Club. We will, you know, we'll be part of it.
Yeah, and the other thing that money comes into it, because obviously when you start out a business and you've got nothing, you just start paying out, but you've still got to pay for your websites, you've still got to pay for this, that and the other, you've still got to work to have the time. So as you start bringing in money from that, then you can start doing this day job and spend more time on it, so you're giving more out to the community, and you're offering more of service. So yeah, that money mindset, and that's something that I've really had to sort of work on.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah, because you know, for women in particular, on our timelines, we don't have millionaires or millionairesses, or you know, it's usually been war and struggle. You know, so we're here to flip that tide. You know, we're the bridge that not only is going to facilitate it happening for us, but for those afterwards. It's going to be more. It's definitely a more even division of Earth's riches. And the abundance that comes with that, and not just as a funnel, you know, this way. It's going to be like this. It's going to be coming out to us all. So it is, because we all deserve it. And it is a universal blessing that, you know, that for the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we want to serve. We want to get everything out there and raise, you know, help other people, you know, and do that. Yeah.
Bye, Melanie. It was an absolute pleasure. You mind yourself, and I'm looking forward to keeping track with you. And who knows, maybe next year we'll catch up again and see how far you've come in that year. It'll be amazing. Bye, darling. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.